All right, guys, welcome back. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Today, we're going to start on lesson 6 of our module. And as always, we're going to talk about our expectations that we're going to have as far as our learning here. So our student objectives for this lesson is the students are going to know how to read poetry fluently and use textual evidence to express an idea as it relates to the theme. You are also going to understand that when you deeply analyze a text, it can help us as readers make connections to the characters and a bigger idea. And you will be able to make connections about the characters and their sense of self and use text evidence to support your idea. So let's go ahead and get started so that we can accomplish these goals. So the first thing that I want you guys to do is I want you to look at your ode that you created. Okay, remember we all created an ode. And I want you to draw an illustration, draw a picture creating what's going on in your ode. We are going to share out those pictures in an activity, and the link will be inside of Schoology for you to upload those pictures. I'm so excited to see what they look like, some of your portraits. So, first we're going to start off with our focusing and our content framing question, as we always do. Our focusing question again is, what shapes Josh Bell's sense of himself and his world? And our content framing question, and we're in our reveal stage, says, how does a specific poem reveal deeper meaning about Josh Bell? So we are going to start working on building an understanding of Josh Bell's character by focusing on a specific poem that effectively conveys an understanding of his sense of self and his world. But first, before we get started with that, I want us to think about our fluency. I want you guys to read aloud basketball rule number 1 on page 20. And I want you to read it with the poem with appropriate pace, tone, expression, and emotion. And pay attention to those words and the punctuation. Take this time right now to go ahead and read that poem. Once you guys have finished reading this poem aloud, I want you to use your fluency handout that we've used several times before, and I want you to look at it. Has your reading improved? It should have. If you guys have been doing your homework and working on those fluency exercises and reading every night as our homework entails, your reading should be getting much better, and I'm so happy about that. Let's move on to our next thing. So I want you to pick a poem. And inside of whichever poem you think is most significant in contributing to your understanding of Josh's sense of himself and his world up to this point. So you're going to pick a poem that you think best shows Josh's sense of himself and his world. And you're going to annotate your chosen poem for the evidence of how it contributes to Josh's sense of himself and his world. And you're going to use W for sense of world and S for sense of self. I'm going to give you guys an example of what it is that I'm looking for. So the poem that I've decided to use for my example is Josh Bell, and this is on page 4 through 5. So as you can see right here, I have some S's and I have a W here. I'm just going to show you a few. It says, Josh Bell is my name, but Filthy McNasty is my claim to fame. Folks call me that, 'cause my game's acclaimed. So downright dirty, it'll put you to shame. My hair's long, my height's tall. See, I'm the next Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Chris Paul. So when I look at this stanza right here, and I read this line that says, cause my game's acclaimed. Folks call me that 'cause my game's acclaimed. He's telling me that everyone thinks that he is a great player. And because of this, he has this big, big head. He really thinks that he's the greatest player ever. He says he'll put you to shame if he plays you. This shows me also about his sense of self and how he feels that he's one of the greatest players. He even goes so far as to comparing himself to Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Chris Paul. We all know that these are famous NBA players and some of the best in the game, arguably. So for S here, we also have sense of self, because this tells me that Josh Bell sees himself as just as good as these people. He thinks he has great, what am I trying to say? Like he has great game, or he has like really good skills when it comes to the basketball court. And then here he says, if anyone else called me fresh and sweet, I'd burn mad as a flame, but I know she's only talking about my game. Here I wrote W for sense of world. So I'm going to go ahead and explain in depth why I picked these letters. You are also going to create a T-chart that looks like this, and you're going to tell me why you picked the line that you picked to go for sense of self or to go for sense of world, and then you're going to give me that line and why. So for example, under Josh's sense of self, I wrote, Josh thinks very highly of his skills as a basketball player. He sees himself as very talented. And I know that this is how he sees himself, or his sense of self, because in the poem he says, see, I'm the next Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Chris Paul. So Josh's sense of self is that he feels very highly of his skills and believes himself to be very talented. Here, for Josh's sense of world, I wrote, he trusts family. Even when his mom makes fun of him, he knows it's out of love. He is family oriented, and he sees his family members around him as very important beings to his sense of self. And the line that I got this from was, I burn mad as a flame, but I know she's only talking about my game. Here, this lets me know that the world around him, or the members in his family around him, sense of world, shows me that he really is a family-oriented person, and he trusts the members of his family. So now I want you guys to pick a poem within the book of what we've read so far within the first 2 quarters of the book, and I want you to complete your annotations as here and your T-chart. If you need a moment, you can pause here, or you can continue on with me. But please, if you do pause, come back, because there is a few more assignments for today. So, how is Josh's world becoming more complicated? How is his world becoming complicated? I want you to collect evidence and write a short response using evidence in 3 examples of how Josh's world is becoming more complicated. I will have this submitted, or the submission button here, available in Schoology for you to upload your essay or your short paragraph response. Please make sure that you are using evidence. This is very important that I have the evidence as to why it is that you think the way it is that you think. So again, it's an open-ended evidence, or open-ended essay with evidence. So now we're going to move on into something a little bit different. I want you guys to compose a poem, but you're going to use a particular frame that's going to show you how the poem should be laid out. So for example, you are going to use this work here. Handout 6A, it's going to be inside of your notebooks, poem frame. The directions are to complete a poem frame below using descriptive and sensory language. You can use a thesaurus to help you generate effective word choices. Remember to title the poem. So what I want you guys to do is you're going to create a poem that says, Josh Bell is real cool and blank. You're going to give me an adjective to describe him. Something descriptive and sensory. He plays basketball like blank. So fly. This is going to be a simile. Every time he's on the court, the crowd, what does the crowd do? Active verb. You want to use a verb here. And you're going to go forward or continue down with the poem, filling in the blanks. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. You will share out this in a Flipgrid so I can see what type of poems you guys have come up with. Please use handout 6A to compose your poem. Now that we've composed our poem and we've used some of those descriptive and sensory language words, I want us to ask ourselves a question, and we're in our reveal stage of learning. How does a poem reveal deeper meaning about Josh Bell? How is Josh's sense of himself or his world challenged or disrupted? How is his sense of his world being disrupted or being challenged? This will be given to you in an open-ended response, and I'm excited to see what you guys have. So, for tonight's homework, guys, I want you all to work in your fluency handout 1A, and I want you to read second person, which is on page 114 through 115. And I want you to read with fluency. I also want you guys to review your notes and annotations in order to prepare for what's to come, okay? So tonight you should be reading this poem, second person, and looking over all of your notes to gather and get prepared for the next lessons. As always, guys, we're going to do a quick vocabulary deep dive, and we're going to explore figurative language called hyperbole. So as a refresher, we've got metaphor, simile, and allusion. A metaphor is a word or phrase that uses one object or idea in place of another to show a similarity between them. And a simile is a comparison using the word like or as. An allusion is a reference made to something that is not directly mentioned. So let's keep working. Let's look at Josh Bell on page 4 through 5. These are some lines that I've collected on those pages. I balled with magic and the goat. You're fresh and new, like a red Corvette. The hoop's for sale, and I'm the buyer. I want you guys to look at these lines. Which line goes under which type of figurative language? Which one is a metaphor? Which one is a simile? Which one is an allusion? There will be an upload box or discussion board here for you to answer these questions here. So let's review the term hyperbole. A hyperbole is an exaggerated statement or claim that is not meant to be taken literally. They are used to enhance the dramatic or comedic effect of a text. So an example of a hyperbole is an example of one is the comment that was made where he says he's the next Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Chris Paul. Is this an example of a hyperbole? And how? Now I want you guys, as you look at Josh Bell, just see if you see any other hyperboles, any other exaggerations. And as you continue to read the crossover, note if you start seeing any more hyperboles. I want you to add this definition to your vocabulary journals. Hyperbole in writing or speaking when one overstates or magnifies a point in order to emphasize its importance. It's an overstatement or an exaggeration or a figure of speech. Cause my games acclaimed. This is an example of a hyperbole. All right, guys, that's it for today. Again, if you need anything, please come into office hours where I can assist you. I can share my screen with you and show you how we walk through all of the assignments, or I can reword something for you. It's much better if you come into office hours so you can get that one-on-one help. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Bye.